Get ready for a love fest. Welcome to the Lover List, your source for the best love, dating, and relationship stories from the Reddit community. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications if you're ready to fall in love with our videos. Has anyone ever struggled with over-romanticizing potential relationships? How do you stop? A lot of people do. It's normal. However, don't take it too far. It's fun to have a pretend life with a crush, but don't create this fantasy man/woman and feel shattered when it doesn't pan out. It was never even a real person. I'm sorry, this is so off topic, but I really like your username. Makes me think of the I got your nose game, except archaic. Medieval fun uncle, I taketh thy knee. Medieval child, whither? Medieval fun uncle, yet here 'tis. Shows closed fist. Medieval child, hey nani nani. Edit, thank thou for yon awards. Picture asking them out and try to picture them hypothetically saying no. Not saying dash your dreams with pessimism, I'm saying open yourself to the fact they have agency and they control their destiny. So any fantasy you care about / are serious about has to square itself with this fact sooner or later, better off sooner. Sit with them, possible giving each answer if you want, and keep doing so until you're at least comfortable with hearing the no. If you're also comfortable with the hypothetical yes, that makes you more ready to ask them out if you ever decide you want to. But you really need to be comfortable with both / a number of possibilities before you ask somebody out, IMO. This exercise usually helps give some perspective and makes you grounded a bit more. Reminds you that they might not even be interested. So if you want to get all intense about liking them, you kind of need to be able to at least picture asking them out. And prepares you for rejection if it does come eventually. Just makes you more mature about it overall, I think, as in this has worked for me. Also helped me ask someone out, so that's a bonus. I'm no love doctor though, so you might want a second or third opinion, lol. I love this advice. Saving for future reference. Thank you. No problem. There was a person I was really stuck on thinking about way too much once, like it was distracting because I had to talk to her about important work stuff and I was just a mess on the inside about it the whole time, and doing this was the one activity that helped me finally sort it out. I asked her out. She said no and it was fine. I was proud of myself for shooting my shot, and I was proud at how respectful and cool I was able to be about it given that I was ready for anything she would say in reply. And she was good about it, lol, that helps. It was more convenient to ask than usual, because she was literally leaving for another office soon, so YMMV asking people out at work, fair caveat there. I actually find that I do this a lot. I find myself daydreaming about the potential life with someone, then I make myself also imagine myself asking them about their intentions with me, etc. and getting a no or negative response from them. Playing the scenarios in my head also give me the ability to play out ways I would react to different things. It makes me feel more open to hearing no, makes me feel more prepared to have the discussion with them, and it also makes me realize that I'm still okay if they say no, because doing the scenarios helps me think about what my life is like without them, and I see that I'll be just fine. I do this with a lot of things though, not just relationships, and I found it to be really helpful. I'll imagine different scenarios of me going to my boss about something I'm upset about, or a friend / family, etc. When I was younger, I worked at a gas station in a city that had a lot of armed robberies, and I would close the store alone. I would imagine a robbery happening and the different scenarios involved with that. When I did get robbed at gunpoint a few months after I started the job, I was able to hold my composure through it, and it went smoothly. I wasn't shot, lol. Playing out 3 different scenarios in my head had helped prepare me for when it actually happened. Easier said than done, but try to stay in the present moment. If you're in a fantasy about the future, how can you fully enjoy the momentary moments with your love interest? I'm challenged by really falling for the potential of a person or situation and not seeing the forest for the trees. Making myself stay present clarifies what's actually going on, not what could work well if only X, Y, Z. It's not easy. Sometimes I also asking myself what concrete evidence is demonstrating what I'm wishing for. Weigh the words against the actions. Yeah, I've been there. With a crush, one that feels mutual, it can be very intense because there's all this possibility, and it's normal to a certain degree to think about that person a lot and imagine scenarios and stuff like that, but they're still only human like you. And that is wonderful in itself. They are just a person who has a life as complex as your own. This can apply to dating as well. I think it can come with time as well, just understanding that people are just people, they have their own stuff going on just like you do, and to not lose sight of either one of those things. I guess, recognize the humanness in yourself and then you will recognize it in others. That might help to ease the over-romanticizing, due to lowered expectations and an appreciation of reality. I echo this sentiment. If you feel like the crush is mutual, it is much easier to have an actual conversation with them about the mutual attraction. In my experience, talking to your crush about your feelings helps to drastically reduce the hyper-romanticized version of the relationship in your head, and possibly replace it with something grounded in reality. By communicating, you get real facts and opinions to base your relationship on rather than whatever scenario your brain decides is fun. Oh, I love that. By communicating, you get real facts and opinions to base your relationship on rather than whatever scenario your brain decides is fun. TBH whole comment was on point, well said. Try imagining the future with someone with no face. If you don't personalize it, you have far less risk to set yourself up for disappointment. This also has the added benefit of helping you figure out whether you really love the person you think you're crushing on, or if you're just in love with the idea of being in love. I'll count myself guilty of the latter more than a few times. Totally normal thing, but I try thinking more in the lines of, is this person actually worth this fantasy? Who are they really? I'm just jaded enough to realize everyone has something annoying or disappointing, but make sure you examine direct actions and not your imagined reasoning. If he doesn't call, he doesn't want to. If he asks you out and sticks to plans, then he is proving he, or she, wants to see you and will make the time. Make sure you examine direct actions and not your imagined reasoning. It's so easy to come up with a narrative that makes yourself feel better and allows you to continue to over-romanticize them. Pay attention to the actions, which are the facts. Get to know that person. They will likely not be like the fantasy you had in your head, and it helps break the illusion and solidify reality. I actually had such a strong crush I refused to get to know the guy because I was worried he would be different than how I imagined. Until I actually talked to him and he turned out wonderful, and we've been dating for over a year now. Aw, that ending makes my heart feel so happy. I tend to over-annoy myself by going too far, by which I mean when I'm done imagining the whirlwind romance, the long walks on the beach, the kisses, the great sex, the perfect wedding. I then start to think of the reality of life in relationships, the lack of foreplay and going in dry and only lasting a few minutes, his lazy ass in front of the TV, the toilet seat being left up, his wet towel left on MY's side of the bed, again, him using the good tea towels to fix the car, his skid-marked underwear that I have to wash. And then by the time the guy has even opened his mouth to introduce himself to me, I'm already sick of his shit and want a divorce. LOL. It's fine to think about this, but you have to keep in mind that the person in your mind and the person in real life might not be the same. Be wary of falling in love for the image you have of someone, rather than the actual person itself. This can be the case if you don't see the other much and you rely more on chatting. I usually snap out of it the moment I see them again. If I don't immediately feel the same butterflies IRL as while chatting with them, I love the image of them and not the actual person. This is something I still work on every day. I can't speak for others, but for me, my tendency to over-romanticize potential relationships was inherently tied to my lack of self-worth and my constant need to chase volatility. My attachment style was previously rather anxious, so over-romanticizing potential relationships / getting lost in the fantasy early on was an escape for my feelings of unworthiness. The thing that catalyzed me changing was going to therapy and counseling. 100%. Through therapy, I learned some very key things. My perception of myself was very negative and hurtful. My therapist described my self-talk as being an act of violence towards myself, and that my inner voice was having the same effect on me as an abuser. Securely attached people don't not feel sad when a breakup happens, or when a potential relationship fails. They also don't not fantasize. I had this warped idea in my head that a securely attached person, aka someone who had to have been better than me, would bypass all the messy emotions of a breakup and the feelings of devastation, and they would never get lost in a fantasy. Here's the thing, they don't. The difference is that securely attached people don't connect a breakup to their feelings of self-worth. Learning these key things, I was then catapulted into this state where I wanted nothing more than to really learn about myself and what I wanted in someone. This took a few months, but it was like a switch was turned on in me. I suddenly started to become very less anxiously attached to potential new partners. I wasn't hanging off of their every text, I wasn't becoming as emotionally hyped and shattered, and I was able to just let people go. And it feels incredible. I feel like I now see people for who they are, and I've been able to take the rose-tinted glasses off. I am now able to be excited by a potential new date, while not using it to escape something else I'm feeling. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm currently in a similar situation where I'm transitioning from being anxious, nearly obsessive, about a potential relationship, to kinda just letting things be what they are and accept them for that. I'm just really glad to see that others have seen progress within their own lives. Gives me hope. Thank you for sharing. Yes, it's a very easy trap to fall into. Unfortunately, it can lead to a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering. I stopped doing this by simply enjoying the current stage of my relationship. I had to learn that it's okay to just have fun and see where things go. Every guy I meet isn't going to be the Romeo to my Juliet, and that's okay. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. I do this all the time. I have attachment issues relating to experiences with my parents. I am currently in therapy because I've done it all my life, so I am working on how to stop with that. How is it going so far? Thank you for asking. I feel much more aware and can accept my own personal role in problematic relationships I've had. Getting out that victim mindset, it's been an eye-opener. I used to do this all the time, and it was really bad for me mentally. I just recently got into a relationship, so I haven't had to deal with this issue for a while, but I used to do it all the time. I would fantasize constantly about how happy and perfect our lives would be like together, and I would think about it constantly, causing me to build them up in my head, even going so far to create a personality for them that they didn't even have. Then, when I would see them in real life and interact with them, I was always disappointed and shocked back into the reality of how different they were from what I kept imagining, but for some reason, I kept hoping that life would turn into something like I had been imagining all this time. I trained myself to stop by just envisioning an imaginary person, that way I knew they weren't real and they could never let me down, but remember not to make this imaginary person the standard for a real-life lover, because my boyfriend is nothing like who I used to imagine. If this doesn't help, then just try to give yourself more in-person contact with who you are over-romanticizing, maybe even look for negative things in their personality that you haven't exactly looked for before. Are they a little cocky? Do they talk to a lot of other potential lovers? Are they insensitive? Do they associate with troublesome people? Evaluating factors like this will knock them down a peg in your head and help you to gain some focus. Always remember, however, to not beat yourself up too hard about this, because when people have a crush, they tend to build them up to the extreme in their heads due to the sheer excitement of the possibility of actually ending up with them. Keep your head up and remember that no one is as perfect as you may build them up to be. I implement boundaries and open discussion about expectations very early on. It has worked with helping me anyway. Can you expand on that? Sure. I will tell a potential date what my expectations are for the potential relationship very early on. I feel it helps weed out people who aren't on the same page as me. I'll implement boundaries on communication, frequency, and consistency of dates. I just don't want to waste my time or anyone else's. It's best to be upfront. You won't get what you want unless you ask for it. I have a list of non-negotiables that I stick to. I try my best not to romanticize a relationship's potential by just going with the flow. Another episode of relationship stories that are truly worth telling, and you got to be a part of it. If you enjoyed hearing these tales, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on notifications too so you never miss an episode filled with tales that'll warm your heart.